Okay, so this story is based on a real client of mine who lost her job while paying off her mortgage faster using a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. Now, many of you probably clicked on this video because you're doing your research. You've learned about this concept, this strategy of using a HELOC to pay off your mortgage faster, and this exact scenario might be your biggest concern. Because after all, we just witnessed the longest government shutdown for 43 days. We've seen thousands of government employees furloughed without pay, and we're seeing news after news, seeing layoffs and large number of employees being fired by well-known companies. So you might be wondering, what if that happens to me? Now, for the sake of privacy, we'll call this client Donna. Now, that's not her real name, but her story and the lesson are very real. And stick with me until the end of this video because not only will I share Donna's story, but I'll also show you a real mathematical breakdown using a spreadsheet to illustrate what happened and what her results could have looked like in the end. Now, it all began in early 2019 when Donna first learned about the accelerated payoff strategy, the concept of using a HELOC to pay off her mortgage. Like many of you, she did her research, she looked up credible websites, watched videos, and asked herself whether this strategy was right for her. Eventually, she realized that this could be a powerful way to get ahead financially, and so she decided to become a client and started implementing the strategy with our help. Now, for some background, Donna was a school teacher, so as you can imagine, she didn't have a large pool of cash just sitting around that she could rely on. But she was determined to take control of her finances and make progress on her mortgage using the accelerated payoff concept. So throughout 2019, she followed the plan, started using the strategy, and began seeing real results and real savings. Her mortgage balance was dropping faster and faster. She was saving money and time, and she felt totally confident and in control when it comes to her finances. Everything was going according to plan and she was feeling great until late 2019 and early 20 when the world changed. And we all know what happened. It was the COVID-19 pandemic. The global pandemic brought everything to a halt. I mean, going back to the moment with the flashback, we all remember what was going on. Like millions of hard-working Americans, Donna was furloughed in March of 2020 when the United States declared a state of emergency. And right as that was happening, we saw events shut down. We've started to see employers starting to furlough and lay off all their employees. It was as if the world was coming to a screeching halt. And for Donna, her income stopped overnight. And like many others, she had no idea how long this was gonna last. I mean, all we were told was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? But we know that 2 weeks turned into months and months turned into years of uncertainty. Families everywhere were struggling, jobs were disappearing, and people were scared. And sadly, Donna was not an exception. She had no income and no clear plan for when she would get back to work. Now, here's where the power of the accelerated payoff strategy really came through. Because she was using a HELOC, Donna had access to her home's equity. Now, during those months without any income, she was able to draw from her HELOC to cover her essential expenses, things like food and groceries, gas, utilities, the bills, her car payment, everything she needed to keep things going at a minimal level, she was able to do. And even the minimum payment on the HELOC itself was covered by the HELOC. Now, this approach, known as the float, isn't meant to be a permanent solution. It's simply a temporary safety net in the times where you lose your income, you're in transition from one job to another, and a classic example would be the pandemic. But if misused, yes, it can hurt your finances. But when managed carefully, it can provide crucial breathing room during those emergencies. So you can't just keep on relying on the HELOC for the rest of your life, right? It doesn't work that way. You'll just accumulate more debt and more interest. Obviously, that won't result in a sound financial outcome. But for Donna, she just needed a few months where she can sustain herself and her life using her HELOC. So while others around her were panicking, Donna stayed calm. And of course, yes, she trimmed back a little bit in terms of her discretionary spending, so less eating out, no movies. She didn't take on a vacation or anything like that. But she was at least able to keep her bills paid and maintain the stability. And so fortunately for Donna, she was able to get her job back 3 months later. And because she had this safety net, her HELOC, she didn't miss a single mortgage payment, didn't default on her HELOC, and stayed on track with her financial plan. Now, we wouldn't know what really would have happened, but had she not had her HELOC, maybe she would have missed her, car payment, maybe she missed a mortgage payment, she couldn't put food on the table, gas in the car. We don't know. But the HELOC did provide a very strong layer of security and a safety net where during those 3 months with no income, she was able to continue to maintain her minimal needs throughout those 3 months. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna illustrate this as a simple example that mirrors Donna's situation. Now, what I'm about to show you aren't actually her numbers, but this simulation as well as an illustration will show you how this could work if it were to happen to you while using the accelerated payoff concept. So here we are on our classic accelerated payoff calculator, which you'll be able to download the free version of this in the video description down below. It's under chopmymortgage.com, so you can follow along if you like, or plug in your own numbers. So let's go ahead and illustrate what would happen if you were in Donna's shoes where you had no income for 3 months. Again, this is just an illustration just to show you the power of the accelerated payoff strategy, not necessarily a guarantee or a promise that you'll save money or time, but just to simply show you the power and how resilient this strategy is even in times where we lose our income. So here we are. Let's say Donna's original balance was $350,000. Current balance at the time when she started using the strategy is $325,000. Again, these aren't real numbers from Donna. I'm just using a simulation to illustrate a case, okay? I'm trying to illustrate a point. So let's say her interest rate was at 4.5%. Again, this is 2019 numbers, right? A little bit different now. Here's her term for 30 years. Her P&I, principal and interest, $1,773.40. And we're gonna skip the consumer debt section just to keep the illustration simple as possible. But if she had other consumer debt, like auto loan, she would enter that information here. So implementation start. So like I mentioned, she started early 2019. I'm just gonna use January 1st to make things a lot simple for the demonstration. So let's say she started this strategy on January 1st of 2019. Down below is her hypothetical income and expense number. So let's say her net monthly income or post-tax dollars that she gets paid on a monthly basis is $10,000. Her living expenses, excluding the principal and interest payment on her mortgage, and I'll show you why in just one sec, is let's say $6,000, and her cash flow is $2,226. So that's taking the monthly income minus her expenses and minus the P&I payments she's making on her mortgage. All right, and on the line of credit, let's say we're using $10,000 at a time as our principal chunk. So you guys understand the strategy at this point. We're using the HELOC and drawing from the HELOC, making a principal chunking payments on our mortgage to accelerate the mortgage pay down, the amortization, right? That helps us save money on the interest and time. So down to her potential result, she would have paid us off on December 16, 2026, paid off in approximately 8 years. And her original interest would have been $225,698. And because of the accelerated payoff strategy, she's paying it off with a new interest of $62,480. So you see that right there, okay? And so when we do the difference, her mortgage interest saving is $163,217.66 of potential interest savings. So I'm gonna record that here because I'm gonna show you the effect of her losing 3 months of income. We're gonna illustrate that or simulate that using the calculator. So pretty good savings, right? $163,000 of potential interest savings, pretty darn good. Assuming that she continues the pattern with her income, her cash flow, her mortgage, everything remains the same. Now, we know in 2020, things weren't the same. So let's go to the daily tab where we can simulate her losing 3 months of income. So you can see, again, you won't see this on the free version of the calculator. This is only available to our clients, but I wanna show you how this works kind of behind the scenes. So we have our P&I payment tier that she's been making starting January 1st of 2019. On the column K, right, which is the income column, indicates and shows her paycheck coming in on the 1st and the 15th. And you can see the mortgage balance here, all right, and the line of credit balance here. The daily interest cost for the line of credit is on column I. So we can see all that, right? Okay, column L, which is right here, is the living expenses. So you can see she continues to pay down her mortgage. Okay, all the way through January, she was doing great. Okay, her income coming in to lower the average daily balance on the line of credit. She's using the line of credit to pay for her living expenses of $6,000. So you can see that here, jumping from $3,000 to $9,000 for the line of credit. Okay, and she's also using the line of credit to pay for her mortgage as well. All right, so you can see all of that impacting the line of credit number, and as well as the average daily interest costs for the line of credit. Now, we know what happened in March of 2020 when the United States declares an emergency, and this is where she loses her income. So let's say she loses her income for April, May, and June. All right, so let's go ahead and simulate that, where she will lose, okay, April. So we'll delete this here to 0. Okay, she loses her second April payment, and we'll just continue May, June, and then from what we know, she will continue her income, receiving the income starting in July. So that's 3 total months where she lost her income. And you can see, even with the line of credit balance beginning in April of 2020, okay, this line of credit balance continues to climb up because there's no income to come in to lower the average daily cost. And you can see also the daily interest cost increasing as well. All right, so daily balance goes up, daily interest cost goes up, and she's able to continue making her living expenses. And in this illustration, we're staying rather conservative. From my understanding, Donna did scale back in terms of her living expenses. She was trying to get as tight as possible, not spending any discretionary expenses, right? Entertainment, dining out. She cut a lot of that to reduce the quote unquote damage, right? So we're gonna maintain her living expenses even before and after she lost her job or lost her income for 3 months, just to be conservative as possible. So her living expenses are being paid for by the line of credit. You can see the line of credit balance go from $16,701 to $22,000 because of the living expenses, and it continues to climb, right? Because she's got to make her mortgage payment, all right? The monthly interest costs on the line of credit itself, all right? And she continues to see the climb all the way to January, until January she starts getting her income, her paycheck is back. So that $5,000 then lowers the line of credit balance, right? But then we also have to pay the mortgage, all right? And if we continue to scroll, you'll see the line of credit balance declining again, decreasing once more, and she's back on track to start chunking again. So by losing those 3 months, let's see what happens to the final calculation, the potential. So before the pandemic, she was on track to pay off the mortgage on December 16, 2026. But because she lost 3 months of income, she's now projected to pay off her mortgage on October 16, 2027, which then translates to 8.8 years. So she lost 0.8 years, right? Not a full year, but she lost about 0.8 years, which I think is about 10 months, roughly. Yeah, it's about 10 months where she lost because of her 3 months of furlough, all right? And on the interest savings, she would have saved $163,217, but because of the 3 months of no income, she's only saving $151,750.37. So there's difference about $12,000, right? So she lost the opportunity to potentially save $12,000, but because she was set back 3 months, she is now saving $151,000 as opposed to $163,000. Now, regardless, still a massive win when compared to a 30-year payoff, right? When compared to $225,000 cost, right? Her new interest, even after losing 3 months of income, is projected to be $73,000, resulting in a potential interest savings of $151,750. So you can see this strategy is incredibly resilient. it is able to absorb even 3 months of job or income loss between those transition periods where you're looking for a new job or you're just waiting for you to be rehired because of a global pandemic, whatever the case might be. So there are 2 key takeaways from Donna's story. First, the accelerated payoff strategy isn't just about paying off your mortgage faster. It can also serve as a safety net in case of an emergency or some kind of a catastrophic event to your finances. So when emergencies hit, whether it's job loss, government shutdown, medical bills, or unexpected expenses, having a HELOC gives you access to cash without relying on credit cards or draining your savings. Second is that if you solely rely on just making extra payments to your mortgage, whether it's bi-weekly, lump sums, or tax refund paydowns, once that money is locked into your mortgage, you can't get it back out for an emergency. But with a HELOC, you are able to tap into your equity in case you need access. So if you're saying to yourself, yeah, I'm not gonna use the HELOC strategy, I'm not gonna use the accelerated payoff method, I'm just gonna stick with doing extra payments to my mortgage, well, the question becomes, if you lose your job for 3 months like Donna, how would you ever get that money back? I mean, yes, you could theoretically keep some money in your savings in a high yield savings account, but most of those pay far less interest than what you're paying on your mortgage. So my question to you is, why not have a system that lets you pay off your mortgage faster and still gives you the flexibility to access your cash when needed? So my friends, that's the power of the accelerated payoff strategy. Now, I will say that this strategy isn't for everyone. It does require discipline, but so does any financial strategy. Staying in physical shape, driving safely, and keeping a job all requires a varying degree of discipline. So my philosophy is that freedom cannot be achieved without discipline. Whether it's investing, budgeting, or saving for retirement, discipline is the price for progress. So yes, I am biased towards paying off your mortgage faster using a HELOC, but I also believe it's important to understand when this strategy may not be a good fit. So if you want to learn more about this strategy, check out this next video where I explain exactly who this strategy is not for so that you can make an informed decision about your situation. So if you found Donna's story to be helpful, check out some of our other videos and resources down below in the video description to learn how you can use the accelerated payoff strategy to build financial security, save on interest, and take control of your money. With that said, leave your questions and comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video.